Um, well, welcome to our studio here, Mayor.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
As we were just chatting a minute ago, the slogan that you've used is "There's a new day in Gary." And tell me a little bit about the orientation that you bring to the job and why you really thought a new day was possible.
Well, because it's a new day to focus on the promise of the city as opposed to our problems. You know, so often you hear people talk about the problems and the challenges that we have in our community, and certainly we're not turning a deaf ear or blind to those challenges. But at the same time, what you emphasize is what really will motivate you. And so we choose to be motivated by the positive things, the promise that Gary has, the fact that we're on a beautiful lakefront, the fact that we're at the population center of North America in proximity to the third largest city in the country, the fact that we have so many amenities, an airport, 3 Class 1 rail lines, 3 interstate highways. All of those make Gary's promise much greater than our problems or our challenges.
What, as you looked at all of this, what do you think is the timing or the emphasis or the mood? What shifted that makes you believe that now is the time to be able to turn the fortunes for Gary?
Well, I think that people see that right now transportation is a big issue across the country. There's a $109 billion bill in front of the United States Congress that focuses solely on transportation. So whether you're talking about high-speed rail, whether you're talking about the intermodal yards that are popping up all over the country and in other parts of the world, Gary has all of the assets, the natural assets in place to take advantage of this transportation wave. So I think that's what really does encourage people. The fact, too, that we have an industrial base, the steel mills, the other industries that are related or some not related to steel, all of that lends itself to Gary's transportation assets.
Tell me a little bit about yourself as you were growing up and what connected you to ultimately the desire to be able to do something like this.
You know, I was an only child growing up, but my mother worked at an old-time settlement house. That's something that was a remnant of the 30s and the 40s, when people would come to the north or come from outside of the country to Gary. They would stop in a settlement house and stay there for a brief period of time until they could get permanent housing. So my mom worked at this settlement house, which really was a community center, a place for kids to play, a place for seniors. I learned how to do 4-H, or I was a part of 4-H there. You learned how to cook, how to sew at the settlement house or the neighborhood house. And the community was always first and foremost there. So if there was a challenge in the community, if there was a problem in the community, people always worked on it at the settlement house. In fact, I remember as a kid when the schools struck, when the teachers had a strike at the school, the settlement house had school for us every day. So we weren't out of school then. We went every day, and they called it a freedom school, but I mean,
that was literally the community coming together to make sure everything is taken care of. That was the community coming together.
So that really instilled in me the obligation that we have as individuals to others in the community. And that was really driven by my mother's, both her work and her volunteerism, because she was a tremendous volunteer. She taught Sunday school, taught little kids in Sunday school for about 35 years. She was active in the NAACP. She was active in the political arena. So she had a lot of things that she did, and that, you know, of course, being an only child, you get to go with your mom, and so that was
you
something.
You walked in her footsteps, literally and figuratively.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What have you loved to see in running for office and then taking on the position? what have you really enjoyed seeing in terms of the community coming together? Obviously, you've got a vision, you got a passion, you got an incredible amount of energy. How have people responded to that?
People have been extremely supportive and encouraging. The constant passion that I see, no matter what community you're in, if you're in the Tolston section of Gary, the Miller section of Gary, the Glen Park section, people are really passionate about cleaning the city up and about making sure that the gateways to the community are have the best face forward. And so a guy came down, sent me an email Saturday. He said, I just finished mowing the lawn on 5th and Broadway, and just tell me what else you want me to do. So, he thought it needed it, and it did. I mean, a lot of...
But 1,000 little things like that actually make a huge impact on the community.
And, a lot of city departments don't necessarily start up in terms of the outdoor work until May, and with the good weather, it's been easy for the grass to grow and for it to get overgrown. And so he was like, I'm not going to wait until May. I'm going to mow this lawn right now. And I mean, it looks a lot better.
What, when you get out into the streets of Gary and you do a tremendous amount of community forums, outreach in various areas, what are people telling you that they're optimistic about?
They're optimistic about the opportunity to have jobs. They've really embraced our discussion about getting more businesses to Gary and attracting more employers, encouraging those that are there to increase their businesses. And so they're very optimistic about the prospect of jobs. They're optimistic about a mayor who emphasizes education as I do. We don't have any direct impact. We don't elect, we elect our school board members, so we don't appoint school board members from the mayor's office, but we certainly can work with our school corporations, both the public, charter, and our universities to encourage and enhance education in our community.
As we build out, we launched in Valpo, went out to Portage, and we're moving into LaPorte County, and then later this year overall into Northwest Indiana. What kind of good news stories are we going to find?
Well, you're certainly going to hear a good news story about the rebirth of Marquette Park. There's a $28 million project underway that is almost in the final phase, and it's going to refurbish the Aquatorium, which is a great historical landmark where we acknowledge Octave Chanut's maiden voyage out for the shores of Lake Michigan and acknowledge the Tuskegee Airmen. The Marquette Park, which holds a lot of memories for people in Northwest Indiana, for proms and weddings, is also getting a great facelift, and the entire architecture.
Another one of those assets, really.
Oh yeah,
that you have,
one of the greatest assets of our community.
With a little bit of TLC, can be really maintained and blossom.
And that's what we're in the process of doing. We'll have of course, the Gary Air Show there this year again, and we're very, very excited about the air show. In fact, I told them that I might fly a little with one of the pilots. It just depends on how fast and how high they go.
And how many times they're going to turn over and flip in the air.
No, we've already established no turning over.
No turning over. You mentioned the air show. The airport has obviously gotten a heck of a lot of attention.
Yes.
That's a development long in the making. You've got
Yes.
to have a tremendous amount of satisfaction seeing that move forward. Tell me a little bit about that.
We are so excited about the airport. Just recently, we inked the agreement with Canadian National Railroad, which will allow us to extend the runway because the railroad tracks will be removed. Right now, they create a barrier at the end of the runway, and the FAA had determined that it could not be safe in the long term in terms of the expanded service we wanted to provide. So they gave us a December 2013 deadline to remove that barrier. We have made an agreement with CN. That project is on track, and that will in turn allow us to expand the service out of Gary Chicago Regional Airport. Right now, we have service to Florida that is
Mhm.
actively going every day, and those flights have been full or nearly full every week that they've been in service since February.
Mayor, tell me a little bit about economic development, and it's been a central component of your platform of bringing businesses, and not just businesses, but other organizations throughout Northwest Indiana, and inviting them into the city and having them see some of the opportunity.
Absolutely. We understand that in order for Gary to grow, in order for us to increase our assessed valuation, we have to make Gary a business friendly environment. So we have done that through a two-tier process. We have created a Department of Commerce that incorporates our planning, zoning, community development, redevelopment process, Board of Works all together, along with an external economic development corporation, and the EDC brings the proposals that businesses have either to locate in Gary, start their businesses in Gary, or even expand existing businesses. Tom Collins is the executive director of that. He is proven a proven entity in business, has done extremely well through the Luke Oil chain. And so he has come to Gary through the desire to simply help Gary be successful, to really evaluate economic development ideas, and then to take those evaluations of the successful projects and hand them over to the Department of Commerce, so that that department, under the leadership of Forrest Hayes, who's a veteran economic development individual, can implement the project. Tom's shop also interfaces with the state, with the federal economic development authorities, to find out what incentives are available for jobs. And through creating that process, it makes Gary much more business friendly, because people know who to go to. They only go one place, they only hold one meeting, they get a chance to present their project, and either it is something that's consistent with our overall plan or it's not. And we tell them up front, and we don't string people along.
Well, and you've got business executives or business development executives that understand the commerce behind it all. And also, I know for the Collins family, they've got a background in Gary, and they want to see it really research.
That's exactly right, on both sides of the family, but especially on, I think, Tom's mom's side. He talked about how his grandfather, who was an electrical contractor, really wanted him to do something good for Gary. And one of his last wishes, one of his grandfather's last wishes, was that he become engaged in the community in a positive way.
Outside of business and economic development and government issues, you got some really fun things as assets in Gary. Tell me a little bit about the Splash. You got the rail cats.
Absolutely.
You're trying to bring some energy to the region.
There's a lot of fun to be had in Gary, and we already have people from all over who come all the time to the Rail Cats game. Their opener is around the corner, and so we're very excited about that. We have the Gary Splash team. And I don't even think this season they just started back mid-March. I don't think they've lost a game yet. And I mean, they've been blowing folks out. So those are two semi-pro sports, one baseball, one basketball. So whatever you like, we've got it covered. We're just
working on.
Are we going to
see out there making the first pitch?
Well, that's quite possible for the Splash and the Little League. I'm trying to work the schedule around, or the Rail Cats and the Little League, because Gary Metro Little League has their season upcoming as well.
How do you manage the demands of your time? Because every community group, whether it's the Kiwanis or the Little League or the neighborhood association, they probably want to grab a piece of you and either give you a piece of their mind or give you suggestions or welcome you in. How do you manage all of that?
Well, it's important, I think, that I get out in the community. And it's also important that I give citizens a voice so that they can share their ideas with me. So every Friday that that I don't have an out-of-town commitment or something like that, which is most Fridays, we have a time where people can have 15 minutes with the mayor and just share whatever they want to share. If they have an idea, if they want to see something cleaned up, if they have some concerns about abandoned homes in their areas, they get that 15 minutes. But it is important and a real challenge at times to balance. You know, you want to balance the work of the office because there is concrete work. You know, when we look at the development of the airport, when we look at the development of the housing authority, the sanitary district, that's the work of the mayor's office. And you have to balance that with the with a different type of work, or the I guess the outreach of the mayor's office in terms of making sure that people are able to access me and making sure that they're able to share their thoughts and ideas and their vision for the city, because at the end of the day, it's really our collective vision which results in the success of our community.
Well, and you have to not only get it done, but you have to make sure that they understand you're getting it done.
Absolutely.
And you're getting it done with their help.
Well, with the help of the community, but also with the help of an awesome team. We've been very, very fortunate to assemble a group of individuals, many of whom were educated in the Gary schools, a number of whom went out to other cities, Washington, D.C., Chicago, other places, Las Vegas, for fortune and fame, and who decided to come back and share their expertise in their hometown. And I can't tell you how encouraging that is to me to think, you know, it's one thing for me to take a leap of faith, but to have individuals who are willing to do that with you is really significant.
And one of the last things we'll touch on is the youth in the community.
Yes.
Tell me some of the groups that you've interacted with, either at the schools or with some of the nonprofit groups. Tell me what you see from the kids in the community and what they want for their future.
We have a great and a phenomenal group of kids. In fact, the first African American state president of the, I believe it's the student council. So he's the president for all of Indiana, is from Gary Roosevelt High School. A phenomenal young man who one day wants to be president. I have no doubt that he will get there because he has so much energy, so much poise, so much of a heart for the community and for service in the community. And his name is David King, and there are so many other young people like him. He was successful because a lot of his colleagues from around Northwest Indiana came and went down to Indianapolis and campaigned on his behalf. He was the area president first, and they decided we're going to elect you state president, David, and we're going to go down there. And so really when you look at the work of those young people from the all over Northwest Indiana, it really shows you how great it is when people can come together as a region. We saw that with the Boys and Girls Club. There's a new project in Gary where people from all over Northwest Indiana, corporate, non-for-profit, governmental organizations, as well as individuals who just...
A boatload of citizens that just said, I want to come and help
came, volunteered, cleaned up. I mean, you know, it's so heartening because it's pulling the city of Gary together, Gary residents, but it's also bringing all of Northwest Indiana together. And that's so important in this day and age.
Anything else that you want folks throughout our network to be thinking about as the year goes ahead in Gary?
Well, I certainly want people, if they're going to Florida, to come to Gary and fly out of Gary because you don't have all the headaches that you have at O'Hare and Midway. I certainly also would welcome people to use the Marquette Park Beach and the pavilion and the aquatorium because they're going to be beautiful facilities and they will be finished in May for some portions and June and July for the other portions. So I would invite them to come. In fact, we're going to have some outdoor dining and outdoor concerts and other opportunities to just come out and have a good time. And I just want to encourage people to watch us grow. We are going to be, once again, the beacon of Northwest Indiana, and we look forward to that.
Well, I'm very proud to see it happen, and thank you very much for being here and sharing a little bit of that vision.
Thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing because this is so great for you to talk about positive news.
There's a lot wherever you dig. You just got to scratch a little bit, and you
Yes,
find
sir.
quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.